Hello everyone, you're on an all-new movie review, and in honor of Justice League coming out this month, I decided to revisit the 2007 animated film Superman Doomsday. Now, of course, this is based off of the death of Superman from the 90s, and The World Without Superman, and Return of Superman. It stars Adam Baldwin as Superman, Anne Heche as Lois Lane, and James Marsters as Lex Luthor. It is directed by Bruce Timm, Lauren Montgomery, and Brandon Vietti. How does Superman Doomsday hold up? Well, it's not exactly like the death of Superman storyline. It does follow it just vaguely, but overall, it's really its own thing. You don't have the characters of the Justice League. You don't have Lex Luthor and Supergirl dating. You do have the fight, but it's really, really different. He still comes from underground. People find Doomsday. He gets unleashed, and the first half is really a Doomsday Superman fight. You also have, like the comics, a Lois and Clark relationship. In many ways, this reminds me a bit of Superman 2 in some ways. And he fights Doomsday. It's the famous battle, much before we saw it in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Superman Doomsday is really good in that regard with the fight. The action is great, and then they have the death of Superman, much like the comics. It is here where they basically make it a bit smaller and don't have a lot of the plot threads. We don't really get to see a full World Without Superman arc like you do in the comics. And it's very, very different. Ultimately, he does return, but you don't have the Superboy, you don't have like the Cyborg Superman, the Eradicator, that type of stuff. You don't have the character of Steel introduced. Not Shaquille O'Neal, but Steel from the comic book. Yeah, you don't have those threads in this film, but you do get to see still Martha Kent affected by it. Jonathan is not around in this version. Again, it takes embellishments on its own. It doesn't really follow the storyline accurately. It just takes a few plot points here and there from the comics and kind of makes its own narrative. But as a movie on its own, it's a meh film if you're expecting a big Superman Doomsday. The Doomsday fight was good, but what really makes it is the evil Superman versus the returned Superman, where he has the mullet and black suit, the solar suit, and him training. That is the best part of this movie. My only weak link is some of the voice acting's very odd. I like James Marsters. He played Brainiac on Smallville. Lex Luthor I have to get used to without it being Clancy Brown. I don't know. He's an okay Lex Luthor. Just something about it feels odd. Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, all of them do a great job. Anne Heche is the only voice actress in this I really don't like the voice of. She just comes across as annoying as Lois. It just doesn't feel like Lois Lane. However, Adam Baldwin does have a standout voice as Superman. It's up there with George Newbern and Tim Daly for me. It's a very, very good voice for Superman Doomsday. And of course, he played Superman again in the DC Universe Online video game. The animation is very well done. It pretty much looks like the Tim Daly Adventures of Superman from WB. It has a very much of the Adventures of Superman vibe from the WB, and you do get a little bit of traditional animation with some CGI. Kevin Smith has a cameo. You get to see Toyman and some other villains. And ultimately, it's an intriguing arc. It's about 75 minutes, so if you have a little bit over an hour to kill, this is not a bad movie to watch. But is it among the greatest DC animated films? No. But this is still very early. This might have been like the first one, really. And I was excited that they were finally making original movies. This actually still feels like it's in the animated universe of like Justice League, Batman, Batman Beyond, and Superman and Static Shock. It has that vibe. But it's a meh film, but it does have some moments. So I'm going to give Superman Doomsday a 3 out of 5 and a B. It's not the worst thing ever. It could have been better. They're going to make another version of this, of the Death of Superman arc, and I'd like to see a more faithful rendition, much like Batman The Dark Knight Returns that we got with Peter Weller years later. But overall, if you're a Superman fan and you're interested to see like a unique spin on the Death of Superman, Return of Superman arc, I highly recommend this. It's an enjoyable movie for what it is. It's kind of cool seeing the Doomsday fight. It's not as epic as, say, BVS or the movie, but you do get a lot of destruction, much like Zod versus Clark in Man of Steel. So that's kind of cool. But, yeah, it's a unique story of him basically dying and coming back and how everyone's affected by it. And it's a really badass return. Again, that final fight is what really makes this movie. So it's merely okay, but you know what? It's one of the better ones out there. I've seen worse. And I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to bring back Henry Cavill in Justice League. So we'll have to see. But I decided to revisit this movie and a little bit of the comics. So if you haven't checked out the Death of Superman comics, I highly recommend checking out that trilogy arc. And if you want to see like something else, if you want to see like another Doomsday battle besides BVS, check this out. It's not the best, but it's okay for what it is. 3 out of 5 and a B. If you haven't seen Superman Doomsday, if you have time to kill, I recommend renting it or just checking it out if it's on HBO. If you have seen Superman Doomsday, let me know your thoughts on it. I thought it was an okay film. I liked it at the time much more than I do now, but it does have some nice bonus features on how the comic creators wrote the Death of Superman arc. I really like it. And for the special features and just some of the action scenes alone, it's worth it on DVD if you can find it at a bargain bin. But yeah, I thought it was merely okay. If you like this video, click the like button, comment, and let me know what you thought of Superman Doomsday, and subscribe for more videos.